Hello, Nick family. Welcome to the Queen's Court. I'm your host, Stephanie, aka Queen, and this is Jeff Clafter, author of the Happily Ever Clafter daily sports blog. Be sure to check him out. Link in the description. Also, resident panelist on Dope Soul Sports Talk, just nicking it weekly show. We're here to break down the last week of the Knicks, the narrative surrounding the Knicks over the past week, the news surrounding the Knicks. Only two games, two wins against Minnesota and New Orleans. We'll talk about that a bit. All-star voting has started. Today, I voted for the entire Knick team. you know, so just a reminder, you can vote every day on NBA.com. I know some of us try to be a bit strategic and may not vote for others who might deserve it, who we think may compete with our guys. And then there's those of us, not me, but those who just vote for whoever they feel should be on the All-Star team. Whatever it is, All-Star voting has opened up, so be sure to cast your votes. Jeff, how are you? Happy holidays to you.
Happy holidays to you. I'm doing great. It was a good week. I'm kind of looking forward to a few more games, though. It seemed like we were almost in the off season. It was just like, you know what I mean? It was like a slow drip on the on the bag there instead of that steady flow that we've had. And I guess that's a result of the in-season tournament. I guess it's probably by design, but probably exactly what this team needed. I kind of felt like especially the Minnesota game, it felt like that rest and that extra time to prepare really worked to our advantage. Whereas if you're playing them on the second night of a back-to-back, for instance, I'm not sure you get that kind of performance like we had.
Yeah, absolutely. And to your point, I think it was one game in 7 days or something like that. We got 4 games this week, so I'm actually looking forward to that. But let's start with let's just go over last week's game. Only two. Cats returned to Minnesota, and then a grinded out win in New Orleans. But let's start with Minnesota. Just give me your overall thoughts on the game before we dive into it a little more. And shout out to the chat, including my brother Jarrell. Happy holidays to you and everybody else.
Well, the Minnesota game, remember the Denver game last year?
Mm-hmm.
Where we just absolutely kicked the snot out of them, and everybody was like, championship parade, here we come. It was in the, we were in the midst of that great run anyway. It just kind of had similar vibes to me. It was really kind of funny because it was almost an encapsulation of the entire last 2 years with the Knicks. You had the Julius Randle big start to the first quarter and the Knicks not able to get a stop, and Randall was just killing it. And then in the second quarter, you just saw this defensive juggernaut, and a 25-2, 26-2 run or something like that, where the Knicks just looked like this unstoppable force. It didn't matter. You could have 8 guys out on the floor and you weren't going to stop them. They were just so good for that period of time. But the thing that really stuck with me about that game is we didn't let up. We kind of stepped on their necks and kind of finished strong throughout that game, which was really an encouraging sign to me. And it was really cool to see Karl Anthony Towns have that kind of a performance in his return to a place that he loved and that obviously loved him. I mean, you could tell he enjoyed his time in Minnesota. But it has to be a little bit special to him to be able to go back and have like 32 and 20 and have a game where he shot. Well, I think his effective field goal percentage or true shooting percentage was over 100. It was like 100.3 or something like that, which, is crazy, especially from a 7-footer. I mean, just incredible. And, also loved what I've been seeing from Mikal Bridges lately. I think his performance has really been on a steady incline. I think he's getting more comfortable too. And you're starting to see why they were willing to trade all those picks for him, because when he's right and he's on, he's a difference maker. And that's good to see. I hope that continues, because honestly, I don't feel like we've seen the best of Bridges yet. I feel like
absolutely not.
There's a lot of meat left on that bone, And if we can get the fully actualized, and I don't know if we ever will, but if we can get the fully actualized, realized version, the Super Saiyan version of Bridges, this team is going to be incredible.
Yeah. I want to talk. I'll give my take on the game, but I got to put this out there because you know my condition, I may forget. I want to talk about Mikal Bridges in that Minnesota game and how much um, Josh Hart not being there allowed him to have this performance. And is this something we can expect with Josh Hart back in the lineup? So I'm putting that in your head to hold, Jeff. Um, but as far as my take on that game, and I talked about this the next day on the recap, is I like Carl Anthony Towns' approach to the game. I thought Randall, and no knock to Randall, he came out and with a lot of energy, I'm taking a lot of shots, but that's not how they play. Like they don't play through Julius Randle, right? Not any, yeah, they play through Edwards. And Carl Anthony Towns was the opposite of aggressive in that first quarter to me, you know. So he wasn't pushing the issue. He allowed the game to come to him. But what he did was he did what he usually does at a higher level. And he was already playing at a high level this season. He was much more efficient. He had the turnovers, the passes he was trying to thread through. But other than that, the free throw shooting, I don't think he missed a 3-point shot.
He didn't. I think
Um,
it was 5 for 5.
yeah. So again, he just let the game come to him. When it did, he took full advantage of the opportunities that he had. I was happy for him. Ant-Man even said after the game, he said, I hate that we lost, but I couldn't be happier for a guy who gets traded and comes back and has a 30-20 game. Like that's what you dream of, right? So I thought he was phenomenal in that game. I don't know if I should say this here, but I don't want to lose this that a lot of guys have career years under Tom Thibodeau. And kudos to Tom Thibodeau for letting Karl Anthony Towns be Karl Anthony Towns and to put him in a position offensively to be his best self and not bringing him in and trying to make him Mitchell Robinson or stick him down in the post, though I would like to see him in the post a little more, make him something that he's not. Like to just come in and what's the best offense for him? What's the best offense for Jalen Brunson? And as much grief as Tom gets about our offense, and I know I'm going off on a little tangent, I promise you I will come back. When you think about when we had Mitchell Robinson, Julius Randle, and RJ Barrett, we were still an efficient team on offense in a totally different way. But it does say something about a coach who can look at his roster and say, all right, with this particular team, we have to play this way. This is our formula for winning on offense, anyway. For this particular team, this is our formula. And being able to create this offense for Karl Anthony, not just for Karl Anthony Towns to be at his best, but for the team to be at their best. And you can argue that since Tom Thibodeau has been here, we've probably had better offensive teams overall, been better on offense than we have been on defense. So just wanted to give a shout out to Tom Thibodeau for just creating that space for Karl Anthony Towns. But getting back and the rest of them, but getting back to the Minnesota game and Bridges, he if he didn't have on a Knick uniform, I would have thought he was back playing for Brooklyn. Like that was the Bridges that I remember seeing in Brooklyn, right? How much of it do you think was the fact that Josh Hart wasn't there? And is that something we can expect from him going forward with Josh Hart on the team and in the starting lineup?
That's a great question. Yeah, I think not having Josh Hart, having to
Mm.
share another mouth to feed or share the ball with, did help him. I think that one of the things that we've seen so far this year is Josh Hart kind of gets a lot
Mhm.
of the secondary playmaking responsibilities, probably because he's not that good an outside shooter compared to everybody else, at least historically speaking. And so
Mhm.
he's really been the guy who's kind of, when it's not Brunson that's taking it into the paint and creating offense, and he's shooting a ridiculous percentage at the rim, finishing at the rim also. Hard is. So I think that he was able to kind of get in more of a role that he did have in Brooklyn. But I also think I think he was forcing it earlier in the year. I think he was really, they traded all these picks for me. I'm going to come in here. I'm going to, he's trying to force making it happen. You talked
Mhm.
about Towns' approach to the game, how he just kind of let the game come to him. I kind of feel like that Bridges is starting to do a bit of the same thing. And I think with Towns, I think you made a great point. And I think part of the reason he was able to give Towns so much freedom early on is because he had coached him before. And so
Mhm.
he was
Right.
familiar with his game. They had a
Mhm.
relationship. They knew each other well. And so it was easy. It was it clicked right away for him. Whereas Bridges is a terrific player. And I think in a lot of ways, you could say he's a Tom Thibodeau type of player. I know you don't like that phrase, but for lack
Oh,
of a
I'm
better,
fine with it.
you know,
Yeah.
but he still has to get acclimated to the group, and so I think there's that. But you said something interesting that kind of uh, sparked a thought with you. You said that you thought Thibodeau was a better offensive coach than a defensive one in his time in New York. I think you can make the argument that the same thing was true in his time in Minnesota. Like, I think if you go back and look at the numbers, I think you'll find that is true also. And I think
Mhm.
it's a function of something that you actually talked about is that, and I think it's something that the best coaches do is you adapt to the talent on your team, and whatever the talent on your team says is what you want to do. And so when we had Mitchell Robinson and Isaiah Hartenstein, they were some of the best offensive rebounders in the league. Just let them crash the glass and get after it and get a bunch of shots up. And we
Correct.
know that they're going to clean it up and get us secondary opportunities. And that's
Right.
how we're going to succeed. Now,
Right.
the cast of characters is different. They have, a lot of shooters out there on the floor, and a big who can play above the break, which is unheard of nearly in the league.
Right.
And so he's able to do a lot of different things and has been very successful with those things. And I think both of us have said, I don't think this offense has hit its ceiling yet. And that's scary
Mm-mm.
when you think that it's one of the best offenses in the history of the NBA.
Right.
Like,
Right.
and that, like, Boston was a historic offense last year. And it's one of the
Right.
reasons they won the championship.
Right.
And Boston, Cleveland, New York are all having those kinds of years again. And so I think part of that is it's the new NBA and just the ability of these guys to make long range shots and get to their spots in a way that is almost undefensible. Like, if you
Right.
design your offense properly and you have guys like Jalen Brunson and Karl Anthony Towns, there's not really a whole lot you can do defensively, because sometimes I think in the modern NBA, great offense can beat really good defense.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and that's kinda how it looked in, Minnesota. You wouldn't have thought that was the 4th ranked, defense as far as efficiency was concerned. If you just turned it on, you wouldn't have, thought that they had won, I think, 6 out of their last 7 coming into the game, and was actually the number 1 ranked defense in efficiency for probably the week prior to them playing the Knicks. The way the Knicks just, um, dismantled them with ease. Like, they didn't look like they were struggling at all, just with ease. And I thought our defense was better, has been looking better of late to the eye test, and actually there's some defensive metrics to back that up as well. But they don't seem to be getting as lost on rotations. They don't seem to be over rotating as much. Still not covering the three. I think opponent 3-point percentage, we're ranked 18th. But and all the other metrics, opponent field goal percentage 10th, opponent effective field goal percentage, we're ranked 6th. Um, Opponent second chance points, second. So the teams are not getting a lot of second chance points against us. Fast break points, opponent fast break points, we're ranked 6th. So we're doing a really good job in that respect as well. Points in the paint 10th, and points off turnovers third. Now, I think some of that is just the lack of opportunity, right? The Knicks don't turn the ball over a lot, though you couldn't tell these past few games. But there's some metrics to back that up. Defensive rebounding percentage 10th, and total rebounding percentage were 11th. So this team is like kind of route defensively, and right now we're 13th in defensive efficiency. I was pushing for 12. I know Tony said 10. Tony Crow, shout out to him, and happy birthday to him, by the way. And I think Ajay said he was hoping they would be a top 5 defense. I thought that was pushing it a little bit, but who knows? Before we get to the New Orleans game, let's just talk about the defense you saw in Minnesota and these metrics I just mentioned, and whether or not you think the Knicks do have a good defense, or it's more a function of the teams they've played thus far. The defense is improving, I should say, or is it more a function of just to the eye test?
I think it's both. I don't want to get too far ahead, but I thought in the third quarter of the New Orleans game, the defensive intensity turned way up. And I think you saw that in the second quarter of the Minnesota game, where they just turned it up another level. And I think one of the things is, team defense is all about communication and trusting one another and being in the right spot.
Correct.
And if you're integrating 2 new starters, you're not going to have that. Right? There's no way you're going to have that. And now we're 28 games in. And so I expect that part of it is going to continue to get better.
Mm-hmm.
Is Precious Achua's return part of that? Maybe so. I'm not real sure. I didn't think he was particularly good in the New Orleans game, but we can talk about that later. But I thought that he was pretty good in the Minnesota game, and he gives us an element of switchability that's really good, even though he's not much of a rebounder from the 5 spot, which is kind of a problem because you really have to play him at the 4 to get his rebounding numbers. I don't know if that's because I don't know why that is. Maybe you have a better explanation, but that's just kind of, from the eye test, what I've seen and what I've noticed. We're getting healthier. I think I love Campaign's defense off the bench. I think he's a very good point of attack defender. I think he pairs well with Deuce McBride. I think those two can wreak havoc with whatever combination of other 3 players you have on the floor with them. I do think the defense is improving. I don't think it's going to be elite just because of the personnel that we have. We do have, I'm not going to call them minus defenders, but we do have 2 non-plus defenders in Brunson and Towns. And I'm not going to shy away from that. But I do think what you're seeing from OG Anunoby and Mikal Bridges is much better. Bridges isn't dying on the vine on screens nearly as often, which compared to what he was early in the year. And I think that's because his positioning is better. He knows where his players are going to be. And so he knows where he needs to get to, which spots on the floor. And I think that makes a difference as well. And the defense is improving, but it helps to play teams that struggle and on offense. And Minnesota is kind of one of those too. I mean, but not a lot of teams hold their opponents under 100 points in this modern NBA. And we've done it a bunch of times this year. I would say 5 or 6 at least, I think. I could be wrong about that, but I feel like we have held teams under 100 points, which in today's day and age is a good performance defensively. I don't care who you're playing against.
Right. Yeah. No doubt about it. To the eye test, the Knicks defense looks much improved than what I've seen earlier. After this stretch right here, we'll play some tougher teams and we'll really be able to tell better. But I think it's going to get even better. We'll talk about Shamet coming back. Even if Shamet is not a lockdown defender himself, maybe some of those other guys' minutes goes down a little bit, and maybe that helps them on the defensive end. Mitchell Robinson, if he comes back, I'm not sure where he's going to be, But just imagine getting 15 minutes from Mitchell Robinson. If he gave us that, if he was more, great. But if you're even getting 15 minutes from Mitchell Robinson, that helps the defense as well. So where we are now, I just see possibility for the Knicks defense to get any better. Let's move on to New Orleans. Um, they were 5-22 or 5-23, maybe coming into that game. Um, they had, I think, had a lot of injuries. I think maybe I don't know. Anyway, they've had a lot of injuries. McCullum was back for that game. DeJounte Murray was back for that, played, and there was one other starter of theirs who played. DeJounte Murray, Trey Murphy was there. Bi wasn't there. Brandon Ingram wasn't there. Um, yeah,
Herb Jones played too.
Herb
He's a
Jones played. Uh, best player, Zion.
yeah.
Zion wasn't
Zion
there.
never
And so,
plays those. You can't
right,
really.
that's true. So the expectation is that, listen, the Knicks are a better team. They're going to go in there and they're going to run all over them. And that just wasn't the case. We were down double digits in the second quarter. We brought it back within 4. Early in the third quarter, boom, back down by double digits. Karl Anthony Towns picked up his third foul like early in the second quarter. Listen, we run so much of our offense through Karl Anthony Towns. When he's not there, it's very disruptive. They're going to have to find a flow and a different way to play when he's not there. I noticed that when he missed the last game, we lost. And I think it's because it's just very disruptive when he's not there. To you, and Brunson went on. Brunson became the Brunson that we know. So for those of us who thought he may have lost a step, for those of us who may have thought that he's not that same dude, that was just a reminder that I'm playing this role because it's best for the team, not because I can't do what I did last year. And I needed to see that
Yeah, me
myself.
too. Me too.
I needed to see that. But I guess my question then is, what when teams good teams struggling
You're
against?
freezing up, Queen. I didn't catch your question. I don't
Uh-oh.
know if it's just on my end or
No, I think it's on my end. I'm on location. Um, Not in Georgia though, but the internet does go in and out. What about now?
I can hear you now. Go ahead, repeat your question.
What's your take on good teams struggling against bad teams? I know some of us feel like, listen, if it's a bad team, you gotta, from start to finish, don't even let them in the game. But what's your take on when good teams struggle against not so good teams?
Well, there's two parts of this, as there usually are. There's the heart part and there's the head part, right? So the hard part of me
Mhm.
says, yeah, just like I don't want any more gray hairs, so just blow them out by 40 points in the first quarter and then just be done with it, right? But then the head part of me says, well, it's still the league. These are the 500 best players on the planet. They and even without those great players that they had, CJ McCollum is still really good. And Trey Murphy III is good. Herb Jones is good. So they still have some talented players. Jose Alvarado didn't play either, which probably hurt them
Right.
also, I would say.
Mhm.
But,
Mhm.
I think it's also circumstances. And I think with Karl Anthony Towns getting in that foul trouble, as you said, we were just like when he sat, things just, it was a 2-point game and it ballooned to 13, you know, like in the blink of an eye. So I think the entire Knick offense was just kind of out of sorts on where are we going to get a bucket from. And I don't think Thibodeau did a really good job with the player combinations in that
Mhm.
time frame. We just seem to be really clunky. Um,
Mhm.
but Smoothie King has been a bad place for us in general. Like I don't know if you remember last year, but we came off a
Mm-mm.
game in Atlanta and we absolutely stunk it up in that gym. I think we scored like 70 points and we lost by like 20 or 30, I think, the
Wow.
last time we played in that gym. And they weren't that much better then than they are right now. So every game is different. And in the end, the better talent won out because the Knicks settled down. They figured out, okay, we know where our offense is coming from. Jalen put his cape back on and said, up, up, and away, and here we go. And he was phenomenal, and they couldn't stop him, and that sparked everything else for us. I think that OG had a really tough night shooting the ball.
Yeah.
I felt like he had a lot of really good wide open looks. So I'm
Mhm.
not real sure what was going on there. But I thought what turned that game in the third quarter when we scored like 1 point in the first 4 minutes or something like that. But then when we turned the tide, I really felt like it was the defense on the wing and the ability to create turnovers, and then that's turnovers leading to easy looks, and then we just kind of got the ball rolling,
Mhm.
and then and I think once we got the lead up to 6, even though they hit that 3-pointer at the end of the quarter, I think we
Mhm.
were able to breathe a sigh of relief and like, okay, we're winning now. Let's just close it out. And then Brunson, I think we scored the first 7 points of the fourth quarter or something like that. And then, it just, here's your hot cocoa and your nightcap, and that's it.
Yeah. Whenever we're down and and by double digits and we're making a comeback, I feel like if you don't take the lead, it's a right. Like there's been times we would get to 2, 3, 1, and I remember saying, "We have to take the lead. We can't just get close. We have to take the lead." And I forgot it was Brunson. I don't know if it was a 2 or 3, whatever it is. We took the lead. I said,
It was
"Okay."
a triple. It was that
It
running
was a triple.
29 footer
Okay.
for 3 that put
Mhm.
us up 76, 74, 74, 72. One of the
Yeah.
74, 72, I think,
Okay. Once
in the
that
third.
happened, I said, "Okay, we good money now." I feel good about this game. And Brunson said afterwards, he realized that he needed to be a little more assertive. Yeah, Brunson, I need that recognition to come sooner. If Towns can't play a game, click. Like something should be clicking, in terms of what you need to do in terms of assertiveness. And the same thing is when he's
Wasn't
when
he
he's in
off
foul
the
trouble.
floor? Wasn't he
I
resting
didn't
in the
under
second quarter when
I
they
didn't
made their
understand.
run?
I didn't understand that either.
Me either, but I'm just
I
asking
didn't
because I
understand
kind
that.
of feel like both of those guys were not in the game
Yep.
and I don't think the Knicks should ever do that. I think
Yeah.
unless it's garbage time, you need to have one of those two engines on the floor at all times. And if Towns is in foul trouble, Jalen, it's going to be one of your 45-minute nights. I'm sorry, bud. And I know they've been more
Exactly.
protective of him than anybody else in the starting five, but
Right.
but I think that's one of those occasions, especially since we're coming off a stretch where we didn't have that many games.
Yeah.
Really surprised me when he picked up that foul that Jalen didn't go right back in the game to
And
kind
he
of
didn't
keep
just sit
them.
a little bit, Jeff. Like, I was like, "Okay, so when is Brunson coming back?" Like,
Yeah,
it
it was
seemed
like
to
six
me like
minutes at least or
yeah.
more. Felt
Yeah.
like anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. But, he said he needed to be a little more just a little more aggressive, he said, and he was. And hopefully that'll happen even when Towns is in there. Times when the offense is dragging a little bit, that could be his time to just be a little more assertive. Anything else about those 2 games? New Orleans and Minnesota?
Glad we got the W.
Yeah. Let me shout out the chat a little. Jan, the Knicks K, appreciate you, my brother. Keith Turner. Keith said, I have to admit I was kind of down on Towns. I wish he played better defense, but he's slowly winning me over a little bit. Not totally all the way there yet. Yeah, I appreciate you. Hit him up, appreciate you. He said that word is the Knicks are interested in Jordan Clarkson. Wow. Okay. All right. Pierre, I appreciate you. I don't know. Most moist. I don't want to get it wrong. So I appreciate you. Kerry Cox, I appreciate you. As well. He agreed with something you said, Jeff, but said that the Knicks are small. I'm not sure what we're gonna do about that. We're gonna transition after I shout out the chat. We're gonna transition Jamit, but his roommate, he's not as far as
I'm at 6'4". I don't know that he helps our size
he
issues much.
he's not. He's not gonna help that. Shout out to Kevin Bergen. I appreciate you. Khalid Pasha. Appreciate you guys stepping and girls stopping by. Wonder Woman. Appreciate you. Angel Torres. Double D in the house. Jarrell. Daniel Berry Sports Highlight. And Ghost Rider. What a name. I love it. Let's just chat it. He's signed to a 1-year contract. Still be with us for the rest of the season. I know in the preseason, him, McBride, and Campaign, they would run those 3 guard lineups in the second unit. Small. We complaining about being small. We go with a 3 guard lineup. We're still going to be small. Some fans think that Shaman is just going to be situational. We don't really. What's not, pressing need for. What's your thoughts on Shaman returning and what you think his role will be?
I don't think he's going to get a ton of minutes, but I think he's a guy who Coach Thibodeau trusts. I mean, he's been in the league a long time. He's not a minus defender. He shoots the 3 at a good percentage for his career. And if he comes in and he makes shots and he's solid defensively, then I think he'll have a small role with this team. I think, though, what he does more than anything, if he's healthy, is he gives us flexibility if we want to make a roster move. You know what I mean? He's just a guy that you have there that he can fill in as one of your bench pieces. And I think he automatically hops ahead, fair or not, of those 3 rookies, And shout out to Tyler Kolek for being the MVP of the Westchester Knicks in the Winterfest shootout, whatever thing that was. That they won the other night. He was phenomenal in that game. But he's a luxury too. And maybe if you need to add him in a deal, I'm not advocating that necessarily, but I think if you have a player like Shamet, maybe you're more willing to include someone like that because you have someone who can kind of fill in those roles. And we've seen that Campaign has shown that he can do that. And with Shamet, I think it's as much a key with him staying healthy. I think when he's been healthy, he's shown that he's an NBA caliber rotation player, but he just hasn't played a ton of games, in forever. I don't know if he's ever played a full season.
Yeah. I think his minutes are going to be in line with Campaign's. Like, I don't think he's going to be a 25-minute like DiVincenzo what 15 to 18 guy. And if Tom Thibodeau feels comfortable rolling out those 3 guard lineups, and it's a plus, right? I know a lot of times we just think about what we're giving up on the defensive end or what we may be giving up on the defensive end, but you also have to keep in mind that mismatches goes both ways, right? And so it may be there's things that we can do that's going to make it hard for their defense, right? With a 3 guard lineup. So it's a give and take, but it can bring Mikal Bridges numbers. I don't know about Bridges. It can bring between Bridges and Anunoby and Hart. It can bring their numbers down because they don't have to run with that second team, right?
Well,
if he's getting 18 minutes.
If you can cut their minutes per game by 3 minutes a player, like I'm pretty okay with Landry Shamet because I'm comfortable that he's not going to come in and destroy the whole house. You know what I mean?
Right.
With the rookie, they're little puppies. If you leave them alone in the house, you may come back and your couch is all torn up and everything else, and and then you've got a bigger mess than when you started with. But Shamet, if he's healthy, is going to be a reliable veteran who at least you're going to have a floor with them, and as long as he doesn't have like an Alec Burks during the regular season last year kind of a performance, I think you're pretty good with that. And I think this team could use an extra 9 minutes off the bench and just get all of those guys under 40 every game because I don't think that's particularly sustainable. I don't like that idea. I'm much more comfortable with them in the 34 to 38 range minute wise, just because the season is such a grind.
Yeah. I do think he's going to play. I don't think he's going to be situational. I do think he's going to be in the rotation. I just think Tom Thibodeau has just showed his hand. Just the way Tom Thibodeau and the organization has been acting around Shamit just makes you think that they're not going to do all of this just for him to have a Matt Ryan's role, so to speak. Who Matt Ryan I think probably had 5 minutes, 6 minutes for the entire time that he was here. You know, he would have made the roster had he not been injured. They drafted him. They traded up so that they can get the first two picks, in the G League draft, so that they can monitor his, his treatment. He played 1, 2 games in the G League, and then they signed him to a contract. For me, I could for season. Did you guys hear me? Did I freeze again?
You froze up again.
Um, It's hard for me to believe that they would do all of that for insurance. It's possible. It's possible. But I do think he's going to be in the rotation. And I think what he brings is a guy who can shoot off the catch.
That's
It's,
something we don't have a lot of, actually. We have a lot of great 3-point shooters, but he's really good at it.
And Tom Thibodeau has been doing a good job this season mixing and matching the bench with the starters. So he may even find some minutes, with Towns, or someone. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. Tonight will tell the story. If Tom Thibodeau likes you, right away. Josh Hart came and like got 30 minutes right off the bat, and you know sorry about that. So we will see tonight, just what Tom Thibodeau thinks about him. All right. All right. I don't have anything else before we get to tonight's game and next week's games.
No, I don't think so. I think you're right about Shamit, though. I think that when Thibodeau likes you, he's going to give you a look. Now, if Shamit comes in and he doesn't do what Tom wants him to do, his leash may tighten real quick.
Right.
We've also seen that. But if he likes you, he
Right.
will give you he's not going to make you wait. If he thinks he's gonna help him win games right away.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. All right. Let's talk about, so this week we got Toronto. Tonight we got San Antonio Spurs on Christmas Day. Then we got Orlando on Friday. Now Orlando, I don't know if what's the issue with Banchero? What's his timeline for returning? But he's been out with the old issue. Franz Wagner out with a similar injury, and now is out with a torn. Mo Wagner is out with a torn ACL. So we play them Friday, and then Saturday we play Washington. The Knicks have an opportunity to go 3-1, 4-0 this week. I don't want to hear anything other than that. Figure it out. Somebody gets into foul trouble. Somebody can't play. Figure it out.
Well, this is a tough week for me because my wife and my boys are San Antonio Spurs fans, so it's going to be a tough Christmas on that front. Hopefully, I may have to watch that game in silence and locked in a room somewhere. I don't know what I'm going to do, but they don't dislike the Knicks, but the Spurs are their team, so it's kind of, and my oldest boy is like Victor Wembanyama and Steph Castle on the brain. Like that's all he ever wants to talk about. So he loves them. So it's gonna be an interest. We don't have but twice a year, so it could be worse. But yeah. So let's just get through that one. Get the W. I will sit quiet. I'm not one of those who's gonna. I'm not a smack talker anyway because my PTSD doesn't allow it. I think it's a jinx, but. And I'm enough of a jinx as it is. So, but let's get this one tonight first, and then worry about the rest as it comes. But I kind of agree with you. It's got to be at a minimum a 3-1 week, and if they, and 4-0 is a definite possibility. But it's
absolutely.
If we go 2-2 during the stretch, I'm gonna be super disappointed.
Yeah, me too. Me too. So tonight, Toronto is 7-22. They're 2-8 in their last 10th. They are, I want to say 12th in the conference. Somebody check me on that. If not, Still out with injury. RJ Barrett is day to day. I believe he missed their last game. Scotty Barnes just came back from the injury he sustained the last time we saw them. I know Portal had some injuries, but I
He's out
believe
tonight. I saw Pearl's
okay,
out. I saw Quickly is still out, and somebody else I don't remember, but not
yeah,
as big a. But as far as I know, Scotty Barnes is going to play, and RJ got that mysterious illness that he always used to get for the Knicks every year that make him sit out fight. That's what he's been out with the last couple games. But I fully expect him to play tonight, and I fully expect him to
play
give it
well.
to us like he knows how. I mean, he's really going to be ready. He's always, and he's
Yeah,
improved as a player. I think it's the trade was really good for him. I think he's actually blossoming in a way in Toronto that I'm not sure he ever was going to here with the cast of characters that we had. So I'm kind of happy for him that he's found a niche and he's found a place that the fans love him. He's from Canada, so I think it's just a perfect fit. And I think he's been a really good player for them. I think he's improved on a lot of the things that we were always saying we wish he would have while he was in a Knick uniform.
yeah, for sure. He'll be was he's very good tonight. Um, drop 30, you know, probably. But as long as the Knicks come out with the victory, that's all that matters. Any particular keys for tonight?
Protect the basketball. Like and I guess what it comes with the territory when you're a higher assist team, the more passes that you make, the more turnovers that you're going to have. Like that was one of the things during
Mhm.
the previous 2 or 3 years that we didn't really have to worry about because we didn't pass the ball all that much. It was pretty much ISOs for Randall and ISOs for Brunson and not much else, or ISOs for Barrett when he was here, and there was so when one person just has the ball the whole time, there's not as many chances for turnovers. And now that we're kind of like spread the ball everywhere, get 30 assists a game, you've seen those turnover numbers go up. But I think in recent weeks, they've gone up even more. And I think a lot of it has just been sloppy play, like turnovers that are really preventable, that it's just like, even from Jalen Brunson, like, I'm
Correct.
like, whoa, wait,
Correct.
what's going on? Like, take care of the ball. But I feel like if we take care of the ball and just get a leader, I think you can. I think this is a game where if you can come out with a strong start, you might can break their will. Like they've just been having a tough time of it lately, and it seems like they're raising the flag for Cooper Flag.
Right.
But if you can just kind of discourage them early on, then I think it's going to be better. Because I think that's one of the things that we saw in the New Orleans game. We gave them confidence, right? When you give a team they're up 10, 13 points, then
Right.
the basket starts to get a little bit bigger. Then, I feel like I've got a chance to win this game. And the longer you let a team hang around, then stupid stuff can happen. A bad foul call here, a ball goes off your leg there, and all of a sudden you're in trouble. So just take care of business from Jump Street, which I don't think should be a problem because our starting unit is still like plus 7.5 points per 100 possessions or something like that, which is
Mhm.
amazing. So I
Right.
think our starters do a good job, but I don't know if that necessarily manifests itself in the first half necessarily. I feel like as the game goes along, the Knicks have kind of gotten
Right.
better this year, and for whatever reason, I don't know why that is. I know last year early on, especially, it was feed Randall early on, and that almost always got us going offensively early, and it kind of staked us to some big leads. Towns isn't the same kind of a player. I'm not saying he's better or worse. He's just not the same, and so they
Right.
haven't really, like, I haven't noticed where they've just spammed Karl Anthony Towns for like 5 or 6 possessions to start the game. That's not something that I've seen them do, and maybe I'm just missing it. But
Right.
I just don't feel like that's been the strategy for whatever reason. And they've been very egalitarian with the ball. And sometimes when when everybody's getting looks, there's not necessarily consistency, because this guy may be on one night and then off the next. We've seen a lot of that. Like, it seems like OG and Bridges kind of take turns. Like, have they ever had a good game at the same time shooting the ball?
Right.
I don't know.
Right.
But,
Right.
so I think that kind of has been part of our inconsistency. But get off to a strong start, protect the ball, and dominate the glass. Those are my keys.
Yeah, I don't know if I have anything to add to that. That's exactly what I was going to say. For Tom Thibodeau, he's getting some players back now. So Precious is back, Shaman is back. I'm not sure how much he's practiced, how much he plans to use him. But now, for me, the big thing is not about who starts. I know we've been talking about that a lot, but it's about Tom Thibodeau using this roster flexibility that he has to kind of match whatever is going on the floor. So I would like to see some of that. And I've been calling for this forever, but apparently this is just not what the Knicks do. If we could somehow free up Brunson so it's not a chore to bring the ball up the court every single possession, whether that's setting screens for him, whether that's having someone else bring it up, have him play off the ball a little bit, something, And I think even when, he handles it fine, but it takes time off the clock as well. You know, that's something I'm asking for. I don't think it's gonna change. Um, I don't think it's gonna change.
No, I
Um,
don't either. One thing I would
it's
do want to
it's not.
mention going back that I forgot to mention during the New Orleans game, I thought we got good Jericho Sims minutes in that game.
Oh, absolutely,
I think we should give a
absolutely.
shout out to Simon. I'm really hard on Jericho usually, but
Mhm.
I thought he was a big difference maker in that game. I thought he did a really good job. So I'm interested to see that how does he start to get more trust and more minutes and maybe alongside. I don't know if instead of Achua or does he
Mhm.
start or do they start to become closer on the ladder or player ladder? I don't know. I
Mhm.
still don't think he's going to get burned unless Towns is in foul trouble again. But at the very least,
Right.
I thought his minutes were much more productive than Achua's minutes against New Orleans, for what it's worth.
I would, yeah, I would agree with that. And I thought that Thibodeau could have brought Towns in a little early and just decided to just stick with Sims. He was great. He was great. Didn't score the ball, but that's not what he does. He had 8 rebounds. 4 of them were offensive, and they were key. Just that second and third effort on the boards to just give us extra opportunities as we're trying to get back in that game. And then also what he was able to do, just in terms of rim protection and just making it difficult for them to score in the key. You know, Statistically, that's what he's been doing all season, but I saw it. The eye
Yeah,
test matched up with it
finally.
in New Orleans. So yeah, that's a good call. Jeff, definitely want to show Daryl Sims some love. Um, you got something for us.
I do. I
All
do.
right.
All
Yeah.
right.
What do you got?
Well, I'm a bit of a writer, and I don't know where this came from, but it was kind of a dead week. There wasn't much going on. And so I was like, I've got to come up with a post. And so I wrote a poem. It's called Old Saint Nick. And what it is a letter to Santa Claus. And so I'm just going to read it now. And I hopefully, like, I'm not a Trav B. Ryan or a Jay Boogie where I've got like this amazing bar skill or anything like that. But I'm hoping that as someone who grew up with the 80s and 90s Knicks, like most of our audience did, that you'll be able to identify with this pretty well. So without further ado, let me just start on the journey here. Dear Mr. Claus, most adults will say you're not for real. That's not how I feel. So please keep your ears peeled to my earnest appeal. Those who claim you don't exist are probably like me and spent most of their life on the naughty list. Why do I turn to you now in the midst of a season of crises and nemesis without even knowing if you'll grace the premises? Because I'm weary of the trends that do persist. Therefore, I do insist that you listen close till I'm through with this. Your first name is Nicholas. I find it ridiculous that a team which shares your name goes my life without a single championship.
Mm.
I was born into this Knicks family. an inheritance from my pops. He lived through the glory years when Clyde, Reed, and DeBuscher were out there getting stops and hanging banners which from MSG's ceiling dropped, twice ending the year coming out on top. Since then, all we've seen is a big flop, a massive drop, a flood of losing you couldn't clean with the best mop. I just not. Perhaps you were just too busy to care. Give me a minute to recap the misery I'll share. If you dare to hear a story of despair beyond compare, the worst sort of nightmare, a fright scare that was right there. And it's not fair, but the details I won't spare. My first year with the Knicks was 1984. Bernard King was the star on the floor. And man, could his highness really score. He was so good, it was hard to ask him for any more. Brought us to the brink of greatness, that's for sure. But Game 7 in Boston meant that our doom was secure. And the next season, Bernard's knee would not endure. Our king fell down and lost his crown. The news spread over the whole town. Our dreams of a bright future, they crashed down. King would never return to the Knicks with what we were used to him doing. But a new savior emerged from Georgetown by the name of Patrick Ewing, a dominant center who got the coffee brewing on championship dreams that started stewing. A goat from Chicago, he started chewing and turned our coronation into a viewing. Mm. Always a bridesmaid, never a bride. We could dominate the inside, but never found the backcourt to balance out the ride. We tried and tried. Chris Smith's missed layups I can't abide. John Starks in Game 7 in Houston, a suicide. The dream had died. You wouldn't believe the copious tears I cried. 1999 saw the dream revived. With Spree, LJ, and Houston, the team arrived on a new level, yet we were still deprived of all our big men in the finals. We didn't survive. The car crashed on yet another championship drive. The Dolan years accompanied the dawn of the century, an age of darkness that was truly never meant to be. Stupid is as stupid does, and JD did it plentifully. Isaiah Thomas seemed to be friendly, yet unintentionally gave us the death penalty. He swapped our future for puzzle pieces that didn't fit. The Eddie Curry trade pushed us into a deep pit. A Marbury Francis pairing that never fit made us irrelevant or imaginary like a pink-winged elephant. Sadly, IT wasn't the only devil sent. Answer me this. What sort of gift is it under the darn tree to trade a first-round pick for the corpse of Andrea Bargnani? The dude came with a warning. Toronto was ready to cut him until Dolan let the phone ring. Melo was quite the fellow, but we always brought in the wrong thing. Stat was a statue that didn't bring liberty while he was touring. I guess punching fire extinguishers in the playoffs is not boring. Pardon me if I was the one snoring. Winning playoff games is the only thing to set my heart soaring. We saw Phil Jackson in action, and his actions put us in traction. We were a fraction of the faction he envisioned in his triangle attraction, which was just a distraction from the fact that his presidency set us back 10 years. The man had no idea how to manage an IKEA, much less the hoop squad from MSG here. To his credit, Phil drafted the Unisnake, a talented player who turned out to be a huge fake. Couldn't lead the franchise for goodness sake. Always injured as a Knick, for us a big mistake. Then in Boston, he's the final piece for their ring take. It's enough to give the toughest of us heartache. It makes the heart break. Couldn't keep iHeart because of all the cash that he makes. We got one heart left, and he's a killer. One of them boys from the Nova Villa. While the Brunson burner, a true crowd thriller, building bridges into the brand, hope he's not just a filler. I once froze an envelope in hope that Cat would be ours, but nope, at least not yet. 9 years later, he's finally here for crowds to cheer, man of the year whom we revere. The question remains, can he kick it into a higher gear and steer this ship into the top tier, causing the title drought to disappear? The early returns are good, but not great. The offense is explosive. The defense has been second rate. I'm not sure what exactly this group needs to lead them through the Champions Gate. I just know that it's been more than 40 years I've had to wait to see this team demonstrate that they're the best in any state, ready to devastate every piece of food on their plate, no matter what the date. I want a celebration for all of Knicks Nation, the culmination to all of this frustration, a championship story for a new generation, a sensation so amazing we haven't seen it since the creation. In your world of reindeer, elves, and chimneys, is there one last miracle in your bag for me? I'll leave you milk and cookies by my tree. May my Knicks be yours, Nick. Do not nix the New York Knicks. Yours is a sure fix, a can't be bought in the store fix. I ask for one wish for this year's Christmas, a New York Knicks championship, which would verify your existence. Merry Knicksmas, everyone.
Wow. Wow. That was fantastic. I don't even have words for it. That was just straight fire. I'm gonna see if I
Thank
could get
you.
Sim to kind of clip that and put it out as a separate video. I didn't know you get down like that. I know you're a good writer because I've read some of your pieces. I know you get down like that. I appreciate you.
Well, normally I save this stuff for family reunions and funerals, so it's kind of nice to do something for for a crowd, for my family on this network, the MBK network, that gave me a chance. So it's really cool. It's out of love for you all. I love you so much. I love this team, and I love the opportunity to get to talk about this team with people who care about it every bit as much as I do.
Yeah. The chat appreciates it as well. Yeah. Booyaka. All right. All right. Definitely, if you haven't already, subscribe to the show. Jeff also has a newsletter. He has a blog every day, Happily Ever Clafter, where he talks about the Knicks and other sports as well, right, Jeff?
Yeah, everything. I'm not good enough to do daily content with the Knicks. I do recaps of most of the games unless they lose and I'm really upset. Because I don't, I don't like to write just complaining articles over and over again. But I do have articles for all the teams that I root for, and I'll do stuff for like the college football playoff. I've got an article coming out tomorrow on that. So, please check it out if you feel if you want to. If not, don't worry about it. It's just good to be part of this community. You guys have been so gracious to accept me and pull me in and treat me like one of your own, and it's such a thrill, and I appreciate all of you so very much, and to Sim for starting us all off, because none of us would be
Absolutely.
in this position now without him. So salute to him as well.
Yeah, definitely. Shout out to Sim. Yeah, this is where I got my start. You all know I'm a host of Dope Soul Sports Talk, but it started right here, nothing but Knicks, just being a past, then hosting the Queen's Court. And no matter how busy I get, no matter what's going on Dope Soul, I really like to come back here and do the Queen's Court. So shout out to Sim for that. And they said put the link in the chat. Let me see if I can get it real quick. It's usually in the description, but I was rushing today. So let me see if I can put this in the chat right now. I hope I got that right. Yep. There it is. So I'll put it in a few times.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, you're very welcome. And then I'll go back and update the description and put it in. But yeah, I think you're being modest, Jeff. You definitely, up the level of the show. Whether you're on Queen's Court, whether you're on just a weekly show. So love takes love. What you put into it. You take to be informed. So yeah, appreciate you. Drugs only in the house. Definitely give you the fire. Drugs only know his stuff. So that's a compliment right there. Any last words, Jeff?
Merry Nixmas. If y'all celebrate Christmas, just be with your family, love on them, hug on them. Tomorrow's not promised. Um, and let's beat the heck out of Toronto and San Antonio.
Yeah, yeah, and finish off the week with Orlando and Washington, and then we play Washington again Monday. I'll actually be at both Washington games in DC Saturday night, and the MBK have an event
Yeah, that's
Monday
right.
so
That's
I'll be
awesome.
there for that. But I'm gonna drive down early, and I think AJ also said he'll be at the Wednesday game, so I'll meet up with him. Happy holidays to everybody. Whatever you celebrate, happy holidays. Just like Jeff said, just be with your fam, be with yourself. It's just nothing but love. I appreciate you guys. Until next time, and gal.
That's the G.
To the oh boy,